Hello, friends. Today we'll be learning a story from class 5, The Newspaper Boy. It's an explanation of this chapter. The story is written by Muniruddin Syed, who joined the Indian Air Force in June 1951 and retired as flight lieutenant. And in this story, he recounts a kind-hearted act that he experienced in his childhood. Let's study. I had lost my parents. So Muniruddin said that he had lost his parents before he could turn 10, and he says that his siblings were adopted by some relatives and then they left Hyderabad. But he insisted on staying back as he wanted to continue his education there. He lived alone in a room that a family member had allowed him to use rent-free. Because he was a good child, he was a good student, that is why he got this privilege. And he had taken to delivering newspapers to support himself for his education. He says that I would be up every morning by 5 a.m. and walk 5 kilometers from Kachigura. This was the place where he used to live, and he went from there to the newspaper office, which was in the Troops Bazaar, and by 6 a.m. he would collect 50 copies of the Urdu daily named as Manzil. The bundle must have weighed over 5 kilos, and his journey spanned 3 kilometers from Muazzam Zahi Market to Bashir Bagh. After distributing the copies, he would again rush home. That was another 3 kilometers away, and he used to cook his measly. Measly breakfast means a very small amount of breakfast, and he used to eat it very quickly, and then he had to be off to the Kachigura High School, where he studied in class 7. Even though he had weekly holidays, but there was no break from the work he did, that was distributing the newspaper. Now one day what happened, one wintry Friday morning in 1945, as he went back after delivering the newspapers, he found a boy of his own age. He was standing at his doorstep, and he told that he was Afzal, and he told Muniruddin that his father had called Muniruddin. And when this Muniruddin asked Afzal why had he called him, he didn't know the answer. He gave him an evasive answer that was quite indirect, and he was very exhausted after walking around. He was looking forward to breakfast and some rest, but he was being called by Afzal's father. This was a treat, as it was a Friday, because before independence, Fridays were a weekly off in the Nizam state. Thinking his father wished to subscribe to the newspaper, he went with him. And Muniruddin thought that Afzal's father might have called him to subscribe to the newspaper because he was a newspaper distributor. Afzal's mother opened the door. She looked him over quite intently, then asked him to sit, and she patted his back, and then she went inside, and then she again reappeared carrying a large tray full of tea and snacks. Now Afzal's father had joined them. Till then I had noticed the nameplate outside the house, and that was the nameplate showed Abdul Qadir. That was, he was an electrical foreman, Lalaguda Workshops, Nizam State Railway. Afzal was their only son and a student in the speaker's school. And Afzal's mother, whose name was Naseem Bano, she pulled up a chair and sat next to Muniruddin, and gently she asked, "Tell me about your routine right from the time you wake up in the morning." And he says that I wasn't quite sure why she wanted to know this, but I told her about my morning job in a few words. As I spoke to her, I noticed Mr. Qadir filling up my plate with fruit salad. I protested, but he carried on. It was a sumptuous breakfast. Sumptuous breakfast means it was quite a grand and expensive breakfast, one that brought back memories of happy days spent with my parents and siblings. Later, as I was about to leave after thanking them, Mr. Qadir asked me to wait. Meanwhile, Naseem asked me, "How many miles do you walk every day?" And I had deliberately omitted the details, but now replied. So now he had to tell whatever she was asking, and then he said, "A little more than 6. 6 means 6 kilometers. And his reply shocked Naseem Banu. At that moment, I saw Mr. Qadir enter the room again, and he was wheeling a bicycle. It was Hercules, which was an important brand, quite expensive in pre-independence India. "This is for you," he said. And then Muniruddin, he said, "But I know I don't have any money to pay for it." Afzal's mother put her arm around his shoulder and she gave a gentle squeeze and she said, "Who is asking you to pay for it, my son?" It took a few seconds for the endearment to sink in, like it was too much for Muniruddin. It felt warm like home, as if my mother were there for me. He says that I didn't even realize when my eyes had welled up and tears were rolling down my face. The boy cried, Muniruddin cried. And Nasim Bano wiped his tears and held me closer. Mr. Kadir said, "Your newspaper editor is a friend of mine. He gave me your address, so I knew you lived close by." Then Afzal told us more about you. And they all gathered the information about Muniruddin with the editor of the newspaper and Afzal, the boy who studied in Muniruddin's class. Confused, I asked Afzal how he knew so much about me, and his reply surprised Muniruddin. He says, "Everybody, not just in school, but the whole of Kachigura does." He told Muniruddin that everybody knew his daily routine. I realized then that my plight was not invisible to everyone. That means his condition, the difficult situation which Muniruddin was facing was not invisible to everyone. Everyone was noticing his plight, and that there were people like Afzal's parents who noticed and helped. I bowed gratefully, shook hands with Afzal and left. This time I did not have to walk. I had the bicycle and I was very happy to get the bicycle. The bicycle saved my life for many years after that. What's more, this incident taught me an important lesson that has stayed with me all my life. Help should always be need-based. Never try to feed a person who is dying of thirst. Yes, this has to be kept in mind, that you should feed the person who is hungry. You should not feed a person who is dying of thirst or who is thirsty. That's all. Have a good day.